If you're looking to dominate at your company and rapidly climb the corporate ladder to the C-suite, then you'll love today's guest. Jason Gish has been an entertainment executive for nearly 20 years and managed to become a VP by the time he was 33. Jason also managed to do something most career experts argue isn't the fastest path to the C-suite. He remained at the same company for the majority of his career. That is, until recently. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you. It's great to be with you guys.
We've known Jason for some time. I think when we first met, it feels like we were in some sort of a place wearing diapers together.
Preschool.
Yeah.
Preschool is a good way to describe it.
Yeah.
When you like stole my apple or something like that.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. It. But we were still the kids over in the corner watching the TV, calling out QC issues, I think is what it was. That was probably how it started. So, no, but we were working together when Art and I were at Disney, and you were at Testronic at the time, which was a company that performs QCs across various products. You could do a lot better job than I am of.
That's it.
Yeah, and I know they did a lot more, later as the company got swallowed up by other companies, et cetera, et cetera. But curious, what actually led you down that pathway to begin with? Why'd you start your career in it? Okay, tell us more.
Okay. That's it. Yes.
The end.
The end. No. Yeah, I'm kind of joking when I say luck, but kind of not. I heard this study about luck. Right, a psychologist did. I can't remember where he's from, and he talks about people that consider themselves lucky and sort of what their attitude is and their psychological state. And it really is just they take advantage of situations and they're not afraid to go in and take what they want and sort of approach people and make connections and things like that. So, I mean, really, I came out to California because my brother was here. I was like, figure out something else to do. And got a job with him at Testronic. He got me hired. I almost didn't get the job. The hiring guy, they gave me a test and I failed. The QC test. I was no good at QC. I would still say I'm not very good at QC. But then I stayed at Testronic. I was going to UCLA at the time, and I just kind of stuck it out. Graduated UCLA, and by that time I was a manager, and then quickly went into a VP of sales. And I just kind of stayed with it. And I guess if you stick around a company long enough, they'll make you president.
It's that simple. That's all you do. Okay, making note.
I'll last everybody.
Yeah. So wait. So when you moved here, then did you did you go to school, any particular degree at that point, or no?
Well, so I got my associate's degree in Colorado, and then I applied to UCLA, and I moved out to LA. I only applied to UCLA. I was like, if I'm gonna get into school, that's the one. And then I found out I got in, and I took got my degree in philosophy. Usually a way to sit at home unpaid and deeply think about stuff, or become a professor. I don't want to say that's either.
All right, so I'm getting back to why you said luck. Now it's like, okay, so yeah, you moved out. You didn't have per se the degree yet. You weren't sure if you'd get in at that particular college at the time either, right? Yeah. And then you study philosophy, which, is like one of those people will talk about, goes with like Eastern art and like, yeah, but it's the one where people are like, what are you going to do afterwards with that? Even though I bet you a lot of that stuff you learned in philosophy, I mean, people today and a lot of learnings from it, it's from these philosophers, and it's, so I'm sure there was a lot of things that actually built on you becoming a leader, ultimately where you're.
Yeah, that's true. I joke about it, obviously, because people think it's funny to get a philosophy degree and go into media. But it's really true. I think that it should be sort of a core study for everybody, at least like a year's worth, because it's so valuable in so many ways. It helps you to think critically, to, evaluate what is a good life for yourself, like what are your goals, and really be able to, understand your own pursuits and how to achieve happiness and things. Yeah, it's really good stuff.
Do you have any favorite books on that topic?
Well, I like all of Plato, which is all Socrates' conversations. That's fun. I don't think that I have a favorite book outside of those writings. And Descartes' Meditations on First Philosophy.
I think, therefore I am. Isn't that Descartes? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, any professor would say the wrong way.
That's true. Yeah, exactly. It's the only one I always took my.
The
For me,
commercialized version. That's good.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Word.
yeah, right, hey, that's all I got to know, but for me, Ryan Holiday and Tim Ferriss as, writers and stuff, they being big on, like, Stoic, teachings and stuff like that, that's where I've learned a lot more. A lot of Ryan Holiday's books go down that pathway, but I admit, for me, it's like, I don't know, sometimes some of the philosophers, it's like reading, like, scriptures from, the Bible or something where you're like I'm like, can somebody just put it in English that I can personally understand? Because I have to, like, translate it, put it through my,
You want a philosophy for dummies version.
I do, exactly, yeah, which is you said something else too when you were mentioning, just luck in general, and there's a concept out there that stuck with me a lot. Somebody on LinkedIn and a few others talk about, but the idea of increasing your luck surface. So I think as you said it, and as you look at, luck, well, and what you were describing, it's like, yeah, well, the more you allow yourself to be put in some of those opportunities, the greater likelihood you're going to have that you're going to stumble across something. So, so I'm curious though. So how did you? I mean, this is like really interesting because you still again managed to grow within the company. Like, what do you attribute to your ability to make that transition from, for lack of a better way to put it, but I'll put the drama on it, from somebody who moved out, not really knowing where they were going, got a degree that wasn't really associated, but you still ultimately excelled. Why is that? What did you do?
Well, I think a big part of it, there's a couple things I think are critical to that. One of them is that I wanted to make the best out of my situation. So, I was always looking at other options and talking to people and sort of seeing what else I wanted to do. And I thought maybe I'll go work there or there. But I had this thing and I'm going to do the best at it that I can. And then whenever an opportunity came up, my hand went up, right? At one point, one of the managers at the time, I forget what his, if he was vice president or something, he came over and said, "Hey, I have 3 operations people. I need 2. But I do need a salesperson." I was like, "I'm your guy. I'll do sales. Never done it. Sounds great." So I jumped at every opportunity. That's the first main thing. And then the other thing is, and of course worked really hard at that. But the other thing is that this next part is so foundational and it's kind of hard to describe. And I think you guys are going to understand what I'm talking about. But really valuing yourself and being able to express that to people and in sort of a humble way, standing up for yourself and saying like, "I'm worth this. You guys need to treat me, people need to treat me that way because I'm worth it." Seeing your worth and believing it is a huge step. And really like I think it's an obstacle for so many people to get over.
I think that's so true. I think again, when it comes to it, mindset in general is one of the things that people want to, I don't know, dismiss sometimes, call some of it even like the self-help stuff, whatever it is there. But it's like people need that help. And the minute you dismiss it as that, then you are less likely to really understand it and get out of your own way, really, I think is a big piece of it as well.
I mean, they obviously saw your worth and what you bring to the table.
Some
But
people,
some, the right people, that I guess.
right
The right
people.
one. What if they hadn't? Would you have stuck around, or would you have left that company?
I absolutely would have left. I mean, I was on the verge of leaving many times because I wasn't elevated to the spot that I wanted to. And then another opportunity came up and I thought, okay, I'll take this for now. But yeah, it wasn't so much about the places, about the opportunities, right? So as long as those kept coming up and I kept moving forward and upward, I stuck it out.
So with that too, I think that's really important because Art and I both face similar things in our career where it's like, okay, well, maybe this is it. Are we not going to? And sometimes some people don't want to have to advocate for themselves. It's obviously great when you have others who are advocating, but the reality is as you said, when the role changes or when people leave or whatever it is, you sometimes have to find these new advocates. And in other words, you are the only one that you could always still rely on to advocate for yourself. And I think though, at the same time, in those moments when you're delivering and you make it known that you're a flight risk at places because they understand that, yeah, no, this person's going to look elsewhere. That's sometimes, unfortunately, when companies finally give the role that consideration to say, okay, look, here's what it's going to cost us if they go somewhere else. And while I know we're hitting these barriers, because this is the other thing I think people don't understand at times, you might have the support from your own leader, but if their leader, or if you're owned by a larger company and the other leader happens to be based in a whole nother country who's got other things on their mind, it's like suddenly now you have to actually play into this whole, like, it's not just about your manager now, but it might be about how well they can navigate. But this now means you've got to make sure you're getting time with the others. It can be a bit complex, but I do think, me being at Disney for 14 years, Art, and you were there how long?
19.
19. But I do think, and by the way, Art and I both at times said, all right, maybe that was one window when we could have left. Maybe we spent a little bit longer at different points. And eventually for me going to Netflix for the reason I did, or even Art and, jumping ship, it was because we ended up hitting what we understood were those limits in our own career. But again, for you, going from, I just have it listed here, so I want to say it, test engineer to director of operations to senior director of biz dev to VP of biz dev to senior VP of GM of US operations to president and then COO. And I actually, was it COO also within the, was that
Yep.
Giant?
Uh,
Is that,
Well, we just changed the name. We rebranded.
okay.
We'd actually bought Giant
That's what it
Interactive.
was. Okay. Got it. Okay.
Rebranded the whole thing as Giant Worldwide, and I was
Okay.
COO of that.
Okay, got it. So, but that's pretty incredible to, go through that. Thinking of you starting as that test engineer reminds me of good old Bob Iger, starting as his, what is it, a weatherman, and then working his way up through.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
he started as weatherman and moved up through ABC. It's like, and eventually,
Take the opportunity.
yeah, love that one.
Grab it.
I may have interrupted. You were talking about some of the things that attribute to your success, and I just want to make sure if there was anything else that you wanted to kind of share there that you think was really critical for you, for anybody else who might be listening and saying, thinking, okay, that's something that I should keep in mind.
When I was talking about sort of that mind state.
Yeah. Yeah. That was one of the things that you mentioned. I wasn't sure if there was any other things that you wanted to add to that.
Well, I guess there's a third that I could mention. So a friend of mine, Adam Sorokin, who's in the industry, he would always, I think he took it from somewhere else, but he would always tell me, don't be afraid to ask for the money. And it's true. A lot of people are scared by that conversation. And again, it plays into my last point of sort of knowing your worth and valuing yourself and being able to advocate for yourself. So asking for what you deserve and what you want is a tough thing. It's another sort of mind game you need to get over.
Yeah. I think with that, there's people less so maybe certain generations now, but I would definitely say older generations, it's a struggle, probably some within, we're not older, but those other folks know, but like even within like our generation and to a degree, some, I guess, millennials say, for the whole kind of, gambit age group, there's this discomfort sometimes with asking others what they make. And, I think that that's something that you have to get more comfortable with. And I think a lot of people have now these days, fortunately have a lot of tools that kind of makes it a little bit easier so that you don't always have to ask somebody because the tool has it. But this is where those open relationships with those friends to really also understand, because when you're advocating it, because sometimes some people might ask for more money when, look, the reality of what the role is or the industry pay for the role, not to say you can't get maybe slightly above that, but that is something I think is important for people to understand is what the actual pay is for those roles, because that might be a sign they've got to leave as well. They could try to make the push at their company for that extra bit, but eventually you might tap out because the role you're in tapped out. And that's where the skills are really critical.
I think, when it comes to like freely people sharing how much money they make, I think the issue is success is so ambiguous. And there isn't a measuring stick except money. Like that's one of the easiest way to measure that ambiguous state. So when you want to start sharing how much money somebody makes, it becomes uncomfortable because sometimes you don't want to face it yourself that maybe I'm not as successful as I should have been. Or I think it's all internal issues, not external at all.
Yeah, I think, that's interesting. There's a sort of this state of mind I keep talking about where you're content, but not satisfied. I'm happy where I am, but of course I want more.
The yardstick keeps moving. You reach a level, and then the stick moves again. You're like, okay, well, what's the next one? So that's why I think when people think that, oh, I'll be happy when I get this, it never works out, because as soon as you get that, then the yardstick is now the next level.
Yeah, that's a really important point too, is learning how to be happy wherever you are. And that will actually help you elevate.
It's that interesting balance with it, because it's like at times it's like, okay, where's that hunger? Because the hunger is great, because the hunger is what keeps you moving and stuff like that. we have this thing within us that sometimes comfort feels good, but if you're not growing, then eventually that's where you can start feeling frustrated and overwhelmed. So I think it's like, yeah, how do you find that right place where you are, at peace with yourself, but at the same time, um, you still know what ultimately, this you it's still okay to know that you want to try to achieve something, and this is a goal for what you're getting to in life. But it's a matter, like, I feel like these things are sometimes battle with each other with, the wisdom that's out there in the world. Cause it's like, it sounds like something, sometimes you might hear from the leader. I remember Art and I faced this. They're like, you guys, you don't worry about title. Title doesn't matter. And it's like, okay, we hear you, person with the title we want, but it's like, but there's this thing with it where it's like, you know, I think as long as somebody doesn't let it eat them inside and they just look at it almost, I don't want to call it matter of factly, but they look at it and they say, okay, great. I understand it, but this is still the goal I want. In order to achieve X thing, then I'm going to now, take that next step. And it is true sometimes, like there's this polls I see often on LinkedIn where people are like, would you take a job? Should you take a job because you have a good boss, or like, what's the main consideration? Good boss, good pay. Um, and I don't know, maybe it's flexibility might be the other one. And it is interesting because it really depends on what season people are in their life, because pay is critical for somebody earlier in their career. Later on, they might be okay with that, boss, or later on, even with families, it's like, flexibility. I might even take somewhat of a bad boss and lower pay if I have that one. So anyway, I think it's also interesting based on where somebody is in their journey as well.
So my view on being a boss is it's really to be a leader, and also just to kind of stay out of the way. I noticed that all all the major problems of management that I've had to work under is just not is not allowing people to do their jobs, right? And just kind of getting out of the way and being a good person. Say, you guys know what you're doing, and when people don't know what they're doing, you have to get rid of them or move them in their department or whatever. You make those decisions. I've really focused on trying to help my team, my employees excel, do their best, grow with wherever they want, whether it's with the company I'm at or not, and encourage that. And then also just, they're there because they're good at the job. Let them be excellent. Support that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think something that I really took away from Netflix, I really appreciated like the approach there of the amount of autonomy and transparency that they operated with. And, I mean, look, Disney was a good company. We had bosses, as I think through it, generally speaking, it's like, all right, that we respected, in that, obviously every boss, including us, somebody has something that they'd have something to say about. I mean, that's just differences in personalities. And some of the things we don't like about them are also some of the things that we learned, either how we would operate and, improved our own approach, or, we did end up learning why later on, they approached things the way that they did as we matured in our own careers, whatever you want to say. But when you mentioned getting out of their way, it's like, yeah, I think what's really important for a leader to do is to be able to basically be like, okay, well, here's the vision. Here's where we're going. Here's ultimately how this role itself that was hired contributes to that role. I do prefer when there is some sort of a way that they have their own dashboard to be able to be like, cool, this is how I see what my success is. If this, number here is climbing, then it means I'm doing well here. If not, then I don't. But I think, yeah, and then stand other way, have them come to you. I sometimes joke and reference the great Olympic sport of curling. Do you remember what that sport is?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I think about it as that as a leader at times. Sometimes our role is just to keep that, stuff cleared way so that their stone could go further. There's probably something wrong with it because I don't actually know how you really play or win the sport. But that's it. Like a leader just, when we need to, and we're not supposed to always be there to move the stuff out of the way, but we're supposed to be there when they can't move it out of their way. Cause obviously at times that's part of their growth and their pathways to figure out how to move some of those own things. But I do think that's critical.
I appreciate that you used the word leader. The leader is the positive. It's the correct term for a manager. You're supposed to be a leader, not a manager. But a lot of people manage, and that doesn't work as well.
I've always just cringe when I hear that too. I'm like, oh, manager. I've never liked it. Jason, I mean, you obviously have held a lot of, you've been in senior executive and leadership roles for a long time. You touched on philosophy, speaking of philosophy. what would you say are other leadership philosophies that you adopted over the years?
I don't know why I just thought of this just came to mind, but I used to teach karate when I was in my teens. Um, and so the karate school I was at, the the owner and master teacher he was dealing with cancer, and I was like a blue belt or something, I can't remember. And he had me start helping out and teaching, and I was teaching people that were black belts and 90 years old, and I was a teenager, and it really kind of messed with me. I'm like, do, do people respect me? Do I earn that? How do I earn that respect if I'm so much junior to them in many ways? And I just did the job. I was very respectful to everybody, obviously. I knew that I didn't know everything. There's lots of people I'd say, I don't know what you guys do at this point. So you just do it and I'll go help the people I can help. Uh, so it was a really interesting way to sort of learn how to deal with those different personalities and attitudes and still be respectful of people. And it worked out really well. I mean, I think that nobody sort of challenged me on anything. People were very nice and supportive, and um, I didn't challenge them on, outside of my understanding. So, so they respected that I'm running a class, but I don't know everything about what everybody's doing, and that's okay. I'm doing my job and I'm doing it correctly. So it was really an interesting way to learn about my sort of management skills at that time. And I was very young, obviously. So I still had a long way to go, but I think that humbleness, but assertiveness and confidence, that balance is a challenge, but it's important.
And I would assume that when you were in the role at the time, you probably didn't think about it too much in terms of you being a manager or leader. You probably just thought about it as, oh boy, I've got to do this. Maybe there was imposter syndrome. Who knows at the time? I'm not sure. But because oftentimes from those, what happens is when we finally reflect on it, it's afterwards where we're like, huh. Then we realize what we did. It's almost like a relationship. You go through a relationship, you learn more about yourself, but get clear on after you're out of that relationship, because now you can look back at it and say, I see. And then I'm sure that influenced your future because that was before. How old were you then?
Before everything, I was a teenager. I started in high school. I did it for a few years after high school.
I think that experience alone too. I know people do talk about sports in general as a way for people to learn more leadership, but I think the reality is of it sometimes even in there, you learn about team play, but you may not learn about leadership because you're not necessarily in the leadership role in sports. But with what you just described, you were, and it just makes me start thinking about, especially for me, as I have kids that are all sub 11, and like, how do you put them in those opportunities where they have the chance to start testing their own abilities in that early on, because that's how you get good at it.
Yeah, it changed my life.
Yeah, when you came in later, like, this is what we'll say, people sure they look at the college degrees, all that, but truthfully, you came in later with that experience. That makes a lot of sense as I hear it, to how when you started stepping into a role and where you were, leading people, it's like, well, sure, you wouldn't. I don't know that you would have ever put on your resume that you led those people, including age groups. But the reality is, it's such a critical thing that I think probably helped you.
It absolutely changed my life. I was very scared to do it, nervous. I didn't like getting up in front of people and talking. No, I had no confidence. And, and a few months later, I was pretty good at it. And a year later, I was pretty great at it, I think.
How do you feel about it today, by the way, when you're out in front of people?
I think it depends on the situation. I know we're recording live to like 20 million, I think is.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, it might be 40 million then, yeah.
I'm a little nervous. Yeah, it just depends. There's sometimes I'll get on stage and talk about something and I feel a little nervous, but usually once I start, it just disappears. And I think I learned that back then too, as I get things going, and especially in a class, people were starting, people were exercising and doing their own thing. And pretty soon they kind of don't care. There's less pressure on you. They kind of don't care. Once everybody's going and doing things, there's less focus. So yeah, I don't know. It's taken time even since then to sort of get comfortable with getting up in front of people.
What do you think are some key mistakes, just taking it back to that team member level, and obviously with your own ascent through a company, like you shared some of what you attribute to your success, but what are some key mistakes that you see people make when trying to, climb, if you will, the corporate ladder?
Well, yeah, I mean, it is the same. It's the other side of the coin. It's the same thing, right? Um, so the mistakes I see people make is not taking enough risk. And the classic, don't be irreplaceable. People just want that job security. So they're like, I'm the only one who knows this. I'm the only one who can do this. Like,
Yeah,
don't do that ever. You want to be able to be replaceable. If you're the only one that can do something, you're never going to move up. You'll just be stuck there forever.
so true. They think they're positioning themselves for good, but they're actually positioning themselves for, hurt. And then eventually they look like they're the friction in the organization because they're stopping the organization from moving that role into, I don't know, I say modern. This we saw a lot. People are like, they like to do things in their manual way. Art and I were the guys who came in and like, but we can standardize that or automate that or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's another key. If somebody holds on to the other one, then unfortunately you don't see any of it. And now they just look like they're not the right fit team member because they're not moving you into the future. They're holding on to the past.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. And then personally, I took the opposite approach all the time. I always wanted to give as many of my duties away, have other people learn them or automate things or, whatever it is, so that I could focus on bigger ideas, right? Getting the company to move in a certain direction and getting out in the industry and learning more about stuff and talking to people. So one of the other things I've had with managers, people I manage, the high level people I managed, is the guilt of feeling like they have to be sort of the first in and the last out, and they have to be the hardest worker. I mean, that's great. And it has a place for sure, especially when you're starting out. But when you successfully, and I've seen all these people do 12, 14-hour days, crazy amount of overtime and stuff. But when you successfully figure out how to fix that problem, right? Working 14-hour days is a problem. It's not a solution. It means you're doing something to take care of something temporarily. You need to figure out a plan to fix it more long-term so you don't have to work 14-hour days. I saw some of the managers do that so successfully that some days they'd come into work, they're like, I don't think I have anything to do today. So that's great.
Yeah.
That's really great.
Yeah.
I got lots of stuff for us to focus on. Like we can do this next project now. You're not in the weeds anymore. Yeah. And it's a weird switch when you sort of understand that you've given all the sort of day-to-day tasks away and you feel kind of guilty that you're not working hard enough.
It's exactly. I think when you mentioned earlier, even as you got out there more and you were able to attend some of these events and do these things, like, well, at times there's people who they either ask the company, like I remember Art and I at different times there were some individuals there. It's like, well, if we're going to go do that event, like in this case, they're like, we want to make sure we're paid for that event. And Art and I saw an event like that as, oh man, what an opportunity. We want to go check it out. This is great. We saw that. We didn't see it as, hindering at all. And I remember even at times early on with like NAB and some of these other things, we're like, whatever, if we got to pay out of our own pocket, we'll pay out of our own pocket. Now, company, generally paid for most of our trips and stuff there, but it was one of those just because we saw the investment that made in us as we were thinking about that future even more. And I think that's an important mentality for people to have as well.
Yeah. And all of this, all of it's about personal brand too, right? You got to get out and be seen in the world now with social media and stuff. You have to do it. I'm not necessarily comfortable with it, but I do it, kind of force myself into that world so I can learn also, but I can make a lot more connections. I can get a better feel for how the industry is moving and changing, which is a constant issue.
There it's just when you do think about that component network side, and I'm focused on this a little bit more too, because it's something that too many people in their careers don't do. And then all of a sudden you see later when, for whatever reason, they were laid off, they fired, they just got fed up themselves and wanted to quit, but then they haven't built out, that group and that network to reach out to, the personal brand around it. And it's like, then it could be such a struggle for them. And it's this interesting thing that if you just do it little by little as things go by, it makes it so easy. And one thing that we're curious about that we haven't talked about yet, and when we actually reached out to you at one point about being on the podcast, was you did leave after this nearly 20 years at the same company, and
20 years.
You did. Okay. You did finally decide it's time to move. What was the driver for you? Why was now the time?
Oh, that's a tough question to answer to the public.
Exactly. Yeah. You could just hang up now too, and we'll just. Oh,
No, I think it was the simple way to say it is that I'd reached the end of what I could do there, right? Not necessarily like the ceiling, because I think there's some other stuff I could have taken on. I don't totally feel like my job was done. I just felt like I couldn't do it anymore. I didn't have the freedom to make things happen the way I wanted it to.
and is that heavily based on um, disagreement with where the company as a whole was going or where you wanted to go? Was it other limits that people were happy with the company? Like, hey, we're doing well like this. Let's not, push and innovate and do many more things. Let's just keep it here. Like, what are there underlying things that you're?
All of that. Yeah, there was surprisingly, there was a lot of, just like you guys, I'm always looking at automation and trying to make things more efficient and streamlined so that we can just do better, right? Help people do their jobs better. And yeah, there was a hesitancy amongst my peers to adopt some of that. And that was really frustrating.
I assume in that new role, it probably has felt pretty great to now be able to come in fresh, take all your learnings and apply to this whole new slate.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And I find myself, like I'm working on the culture and, I'm building strategy for that and helping, with obviously with the business development, but also aiming the company and steering the ship. It's super fun. I feel like now I get to use the muscles I've been training for a long time.
I think that's what everybody just wants to do, be able to do. And as long as you could do that, the fulfillment and happiness just follows.
The three things tied to motivation: mastery, purpose, autonomy. And you could see what you described. Those were being choked off a little bit previously. Now it's like, okay, you're unleashed again. Be the best Jason could. Where can people find you, since we want to let you jump off here? They want to track you down.
LinkedIn, obviously. That's the easiest place to find me.
Well, thank you, Jason. It was great.